good morning. It's good to have everyone that is here with us at the church in the fellowship hall, and it's good to have whoever is online and watching us online. I love Brene Brown. We were just talking about Brene Brown and how amazing she is and how much we enjoy her. My slide presentation is not doing what it was doing at my house. I have to say I am not tech savvy. I am grateful for my wife who stayed up really late last night trying to help me put this together because I don't know how to do it. And now it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So bear with me on the slides for all of you. Let's just take a couple of minutes this morning first thing and try to get centered where we are and become enmeshed in this moment. So if you just take just a minute, take a nice deep breath with me and release. Bring your mind to this present moment. Let go of all of the thoughts of the rest of the day. Let go of the thoughts of anything that might have come up this morning. Allow your thoughts and your mind to be right here in this present moment. Hear the sounds around you. Take a nice deep breath. Come to this moment. What do you smell? Here we're smelling fresh coffee. Feel the air around you. Take another nice deep breath in. And release. We say thank you for the opportunity to come together and share this connection. We're grateful for Brene Brown and all of the people who work with her, who bring this material so that we can talk about it and we can learn about it. I'm grateful for all the participation that I know is going to happen today in this class. That's my favorite part of teaching a class, is the participation and getting to hear other people's ideas and opinions and stories. And we are grateful. We are grateful for the audience that we have online. And we say thank you, and so it is, and amen. Good morning. Okay, so Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart. I have to tell you, this is a lot. I mean, a lot. I watched, she has got on HBO Max, she has got a series that she does. There are five episodes that are about 45 minutes long, and I watched those. You can also get the book, and you can get the book in audio form. In the series, she goes over 30 different emotions. We obviously don't have time for that this morning, and so I tried to just pick a little bit, and my idea today is just to give you some information so that maybe it'll pique your curiosity and your interest in either watching the series or reading the book. Like I said, it's a lot, but it's absolutely amazing. So one of the things that she says that she wants to do with this is to cultivate meaningful connection with ourselves and each other. And how do we do that? She said, if you had asked her 15 years ago, she would have said, is this one or two questions? She would have said, this is two. But today, after doing all this research, she says she thinks this is just one question. She says that she feels like that we have to cultivate that meaningful connection with ourselves before we can cultivate meaningful connection with each other. I know that for me especially, and I know probably a lot of you have felt really untethered from each other, from that connection and from ourselves because of COVID, because of what we've gone through in the last couple of years. And we were so isolated from each other. And we had so many different experiences. Like, I've heard about some people who took that time and when they were isolated, they got really centered and they worked out and they got really fit. I hate those people. Yeah. That was not my experience. My experience was I gained 20 pounds and I just felt like I lost myself. It took me a while. It took me quite a while. The church opened back up and it took me probably 2 months before I could come back because I felt so disconnected from everyone. It was, and I felt like I'd lost myself. I really did. I had some experiences happen where I felt like, where I didn't feel like I was who I thought I was. And so I really struggled with that. What about you guys? Anyone want to share any experiences they had during COVID? Beth. We're getting her a microphone.
Thank you. My dad was in a nursing home, and it was really hard for me because they went on lockdown, and I went basically about 3 months without seeing him.
Wow.
So just feeling very down and just lonely because I would go to see him at least, well, pretty much every day unless I had to work all day, but just feeling, I guess, empty.
Right.
Something I really felt a lot of.
Right. Yeah. And I can't imagine that. I can't imagine that for the family members like you who were not able to see their loved ones and people in the nursing homes. And a lot of them didn't understand what was happening and didn't understand why their families and why their friends were not coming to see them. So that was a big struggle. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So one of the things she talked about was she said that she had learned to understand patterns of behavior and patterns of emotion, and that a lot of us develop that skill out of necessity. If we lived with someone or grew up with someone who was an alcoholic or an addict, or struggled with mental illness, and there was a volatility there, we learn to recognize the behavior, recognize what's coming just by the behavior that's happening, and how to react to that when it happens. I watched my kids who are grown now. Their other mom, who I was with for 20 years, had all of the isms of addiction. She was addicted to pain pills, and we didn't recognize that that's what was happening. But she had all those isms that go along with being an addict or an alcoholic. And so I watch my kids today as adults, not ask for what they want. They kind of hum-ha around it and hint at what they want, but they're not going to come right out and ask for what they want. And then they want you to say, well, do you need me to do such and such? Which drives my wife nuts. She's like, why don't they just say, do you want this? Because we're going to say yes. We always say yes. But that's what it was because vulnerability in our house wasn't honored. It was taken and thrown back at you later if you became vulnerable and asked for what you want. So being able to predict behavior and emotion and put those together became a necessity. And I know for me that it took me a long time to get to the point where I was able to ask what I wanted. And I'm still not very good. Asking for help? Nope, not doing it. Boy, it takes a lot for me to ask for help. Anybody else struggle with asking for help? Yeah, we've got some heads nodding in here for that. Yeah. Okay, so what she says is, our connection with other people is only as strong and deep as our connection with ourselves. In order for me to be connected to you, I have to know who I am. We have a tendency to look outside ourselves to find connection. What we need to do is find that thing that's in us that helps us connect with other people. As I said, like I said, during COVID, I completely lost who I was, so I was not able to have that connection with other people until I was able to come back to my center and remember who I was and reconnect with who I was. Okay, so she starts with some basic premise. It says, we are not necessarily thinking machines. We are feeling machines that think. And that was Antonio Damasio who said that quote. The biggest mistake we make about who we are is believing that we are thinking beings, that we are cognitive, driven people who occasionally stumble into emotion, move in and out of our way, flick it aside, and then get right back to our thinking selves. That is not true. We are, above all else, emotional beings who occasionally think. What makes it really hard is that we don't pay attention to emotion. Do you agree with that? Carrie?
Yeah, I love this because when I was growing up, I mean, it was like this sort of subconscious message in the culture that, you know, you're not valued for being emotional, you're valued for thinking. You know, it's how smart you are and how industrious you are, and it's your doing and your thinking is where you gain value. So as somebody who feels very empathic and emotional, it was really demoralizing.
Right, right. How many of you were raised in a household where you were taught, oh, emotion is really important, we should talk about it all the time, we should think about it all the time? No hands whatsoever. Paul?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. I was trying to get the microphone.
Oh.
I was going to continue on with your question, your first question about, you know, how many, do I agree with that statement? And I do. And I think most people, unconsciously or consciously, would agree with that too. But I'm wondering if there's kind of a spectrum. Some people think more than others, some people feel more than most people do. And I know for myself, I think that I definitely on that emotional roller coaster more than I am on the hard thinking part of it. And I'm wondering too if there are just some people that come into this world that way also. That just, you wonder about Albert Einstein maybe, you know, was he more of a thinker than an emotional person? So I'm sorry, I didn't catch your second question.
It was just how many people were raised in a household where we were taught to be emotional and talk about our emotions and feelings. And
No,
I
absolutely.
think Dawn had something to say. Oh, okay.
Years ago, I used to be in sales, and one of the axioms that are used by the trainers is that people do not buy with this; they buy with their emotion, and almost without exception, that's what I found.
And you're absolutely right. People don't necessarily buy the product you're selling. They buy you. They invest in you. I think Kat.
No, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
I did have one response to one of the statements about that we're feeling machines that occasionally think, and I don't think that's true, because I think that most of us are thinking almost all of our conscious moments unless we're in meditation. But what is really true is that our feelings is a more base part of the brain and how it works, and it trumps thinking.
So do do you think that our thoughts are driven by our emotion, though?
Often
so
they are.
So the
Very
underlying
much so.
is
Yes.
still that emotion.
Yes, and in fact, when we get very emotional, our prefrontal cortex shuts down, which is so that the executive thinking process gets diminished when we get very emotional. So they interact quite a bit.
Right. Carrie.
I like Paul's idea that there might be a spectrum. Like my son thinks very differently than I think. Like, we read together as part of how we bond. So right now he's wanting me to like binge read physics, which I cannot do. Which is almost, I can do for a little while, and then I hit a point where I'm like at the wall.
That sounds like torture.
And so, he thinks differently than I do, and that is real enjoyment for him. Like, he's really on fire, excited about it. And but I really like the idea of the using the word the spectrum, because I think gender can be a spectrum. I think thinking and feeling that there's a spectrum, and I feel like it's really inclusive to use that term. I like that.
I look at our businesses today, and I look at our politics, and one of the things Marianne Williamson talked about was the fact that our politics and our businesses are so driven by thought. You hear people say women shouldn't be in politics. We shouldn't have a woman president because they're too emotional. But the problem is we have taken so much of the emotional aspect out of our businesses. Our corporations are so driven by greed and money and power that they've taken so much of the emotion out of running it. People are not staying. People are so dissatisfied with their jobs because they've taken the human aspect out of it. And I think it's the same thing with politics, as we've taken so much of the thinking and that emotional human connection out of it that's why it's so skewed right now. That's my own personal opinion. Wendy.
The relationship between thinking and feeling seemed to just be something that was not understandable really, and just created problems. It just was both of them seemed to just create problems in life. Until I came into metaphysics and the Abraham teachings and their take on the relationship between thought and feeling. And thought is just the ability to focus attention. And once we get that, then the thoughts don't control us. And once they said that feeling was just our higher self saying, am I moving in the direction that best serves me and that I want to go? And through my feelings, I will know that. That they're not something I am, they're kind of a guidance for me. And once I could apply that to my life, then thinking and feeling supported my life rather than just created chaos and havoc.
That was really good. Thank you.
Something on that. Just to kind of piggyback about what's, I think it was Karen out at this point, but I think you notice, like, if it comes to...
Put your microphone closer.
Always loud. Okay. I think you notice that we're seeing this shift in consciousness about thinking and feeling. So, like, I've noticed recently that a lot of companies are starting to put the wellness stuff out for their employees and starting to put more discussion depending upon the company. And I think what's interesting is even if you look at churches as we've evolved over time, of course not every church of dogma is evolving with, the universe, but it was interesting because this past week, even in one of the largest churches here in Springfield, they're doing an entire series on mental health. So They're now coming into admitting that, and I think we're slowly seeing like the awareness and the consciousness move, because you can only force people to do something so long until the universe is just not going to accept that. It's going to keep doing its involvement and moving things. And I think Eckhart Tolle says, I am not the thinker of my thoughts, I am the observer of the thinker of my thoughts. And the Power of I Am book is really great too. But I think we're seeing that shift happening even in churches that I think they're questioning, well, what are we, or what do we believe, and what's happening? But like as a preacher's kid, you couldn't have emotions. You know, high figure military families, you know, people in high visual public figures, you know, you had to shut that down, but it always comes out and spills over in some aspect. And I think we're seeing that shift happen.
Right.
Shift happens, as they say.
Shift. Okay, and that's a great kind of segue into one of the things she talked about was that we use the same pain receptors are activated. Say you're holding a really hot cup of coffee and you spill it on your hand. The same pain reactors are activated with physical pain as they are with emotional pain. So that feeling of being socially excluded, rejected, or isolated. She said we're neurobiologically process emotional pain the same way that we process physical pain. And being on the outside is emotional pain. And it's like you said, Kat, yet in our society, we spend billions and billions and billions of dollars trying to suppress and figure out how to get rid of physical pain. But the amount of money and effort that we spend on emotional pain and mental health is just minuscule. Yeah. It's just minute. And I'm just going to say this one thing, that we need to look at that and decide if that's a priority for us. And if it is a priority for us, when it comes time to vote, we need to make sure that we vote. And 2, we need to vote for people who are making decisions that's a priority for them. If that is a priority for you, then we need to make sure that we do that. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay. Okay. So language is a portal to meaning making, connection, healing, learning, and self-awareness. She had all of this great thing about portals, you know, that take us from one place to another. She said, having access to the right words changes everything. In the series, she talks about 30 different words, what they actually mean, how we actually use them, and how have been using them in the wrong context, and why it matters how we use them and how to identify them. And like I said, in the book, she uses 87 different emotions. So what they did was they surveyed 7,000 people and asked them to name every emotion they could recognize while they were experiencing it. Not every emotion that they could recognize, but while they were experiencing it. How many do you think was the mean number?
20.
20?
8.
8? 15? 3.
Wow.
3 emotions that people could recognize while they were actually in it. What do you think they are?
Fear.
No, not fear.
Sadness.
Sad.
Happy.
Happy.
Anger.
Angry. Yep, that was it. Those are the 3 emotions that people could recognize while they were actually in them. So, I know, right? So what does that mean for us when we can only identify 3 emotions when we're in them? And what does it mean for you and for me when the limits of our emotional language literally shape how we feel every day because we don't have the words? What does it mean for us when that means that we're stuffing our feelings and we're feeling all of these things, but we're nowhere close to happy, sad, or angry. But we're stuffing all of that into that language, and that's what we're feeling. It's a huge disruption for connection with ourselves and with each other. You know, yes, John.
Yeah, I was going to say that what it means to me is that we're going to use those three emotions in place of other emotions.
Right.
Because there's a comfort in knowing what it is you're doing.
Right. I noticed with our grandson who's 7, you know, I tried to say, well, you seemed like you were really frustrated. I was mad. And basically what he is expressing is happy, mad, and sad. You know, so trying to help him at 7 to develop more language for the words that he's feeling. And I have a handout. Look at all of those words for feeling. Tons and tons of, look at all those words. If you're at home, you can just Google emotion, words for emotion. And there are hundreds of words for emotion.
I estimated 400.
Yeah, for emotion.
40 only in the column. Yeah.
And people could identify 3 out of all of those. So Dr. Susan David talked about emotional granularity. And so what that means is it's a skill set that allows us to understand our difficult experiences. And it's a skill set that we can be able to specifically identify what we're feeling, such as the difference between stressed and disappointed, or feeling stressed and feeling unsupported. But we use that, we're stressed. And how often do we actually look at that and see what that underlying feeling really is that we're feeling? Because it's not just stress. There's something else that's underneath it. Okay, one of the ways we stop ourselves from being granular with emotions is what she called forced false positivity. When we say things like, well, just be positive, what we're essentially saying is, my comfort is more important than your reality. It stops us in ourselves and in others in truly understanding what they're experiencing. What do you think about that? Because you stop and you think about it. I know for me, one of the hardest things is being able to sit with someone who is grieving. Sit with someone, for me, anger is a big trigger. Sit with someone and just allow them to express that and be angry. Or sit with someone who is just devastated and be able to just sit with them and not try to fix it. And that's something that we're going to talk about hopefully later on, because she has all of these different ways that we try to control that. But that's really hard for us to experience and be able to just sit with someone with that. Some of the foundational emotions she goes through, I'm just going to go through a few of them. And she starts with anguish. How often do we actually use that word, anguish? And it's different. It's not a lot of researchers. She said, that researchers don't really study anguish because it's so hard. They don't, they might dip their toe in it, but then they're like, no, don't want to do with that one because it's hard. It's such a hard. So who do you think actually will tackle anguish? Where are we able to recognize and see it represented? Poetry, art, writers, Politics. Okay. Renata Suzuki has this poem about anguish. Anguish is one of those words you understand the meaning of just by the way it sounds. It has this gnarling rasp to it as you twist your mouth around to say it. Kind of like what feeling it does to your insides. It's an awful, drawn out, knotted up word. It's also one of the things that I feel without you. So I'm going to show you this painting. The title of this painting is Anguish. And it's by August Shank. And it is in the Victorian Museum in Melbourne. Did you have something, Wendy?
Well, just when you said anguish, someone said politics and everybody laughed, but really, that's not so out there, because I know in years and years of therapy, there came a time when I was looking at the child that was damaged and hurt, as an adult. And I could talk about all these horrific things, and it was like, there's no problem. I could talk about that. And my therapist said, I want you to go out and drive around town, and I want you to find another little girl standing by the road somewhere, and then I want you to think of some of the things that happened to you, and I want you to think about that happening to that little girl. Mm. And I got so mad, and I was just livid, the thought of any of that happening to that little girl. And politics is kind of similar. We can get a cause to protect somebody, and we can let our emotions go there where we wouldn't do it for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So the title of this is Anguish. It's a picture of a ewe standing over her dying lamb, surrounded by a murder of
And the
crows.
scavenger's ready.
Yeah. That's anguish. It's not sad, it's anguish. And, for myself, the death of a child, I believe, always brings that anguish. When my sister died recently, I grieved. When my little brother died, it was sudden. We had been at my big brother's house in Joplin and celebrating my son's birthday, and Brad wasn't there. I just figured he forgot. And then we came home, and that evening my sister called and said that he had been killed in a motorcycle accident. And she talks about anguish and how anguish doesn't just come for our hearts and for our soul, but it comes for our bones. It's that feeling that drops us to our knees. And there was a chair behind me, and I just fell into it because of that sudden loss. I felt that anguish when I gave my daughter up for adoption, and I left the hospital without her. I felt that anguish.
You're feeling it now.
I do. For those of you who were here, we watched our beloved minister, Sue. We watched her in anguish when her husband Sean died. We watched that anguish, and our own grief was twofold in that. It was our own grief of losing this man we loved so much, and also of watching her walk through that anguish and knowing that we were just helpless. There's nothing you can do. You just have to walk through it. And so we watched her with such grace walk through that anguish.
Speaking of which,
And there she is.
What?
We were just
I was
talking.
listening until I just walked in, so I'm wondering.
That's so funny. We were just talking about you. We're,
we love you.
yes.
You should
Carrie.
have heard what they said.
But, you know, it's kind of like you're talking about earlier about, you know, having sort of feeling a little bit stunted with the vocabulary and so forth, because we're not told that we, you know, it's almost like we're not given permission to feel. Some of us were raised in an environment where you're not given permission to feel and you don't have the vocabulary for it. But it's so liberating in those kinds of situations. And some, even though you're in that and you're feeling it with that person, it's like it gives you permission to feel.
Right.
When they're feeling and when you're holding a place for them, then you give permission to feel yourself.
Right.
And I think that's how we open up.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I agree with that. Okay. We need to understand when we see people or we see ourselves or that are feeling it, how do we talk about it? How do we help? How do we support? How do we step in? We have to have language for it. When we see it on the news, what do we have to tell ourselves to believe that this is okay? And that's anguish. I think collectively on 9/11, I think we felt anguish as a country when we watched those planes hit the towers, and then when we watched them collapse. I think that was a collective anguish as a country. It's that shock, that absolute shock of, like she said, of having to tell ourselves, what do we have to say to ourselves to make this okay, and be able to process this and feel it. And so here was the definition they came up with. Anguish is an almost unbearable and traumatic swirl of shock, incredulity, grief, and powerlessness. And those are the things that we feel when we feel anguish. So then she took this wonderful turn into awe and wonder. So what are some of the things that we feel that make us feel awe and wonder?
The universe.
The universe.
Politics.
Politics.
God.
God.
Babies.
Babies. Oh my gosh. Babies. What are some of the things that we feel when we're seeing those things? Speaking of babies and children.
Love is obvious.
Look at that little face. Dawn.
More,
Go ahead.
more specifically than what was just mentioned, that the universe is kind of a nebulous feeling. But I'll tell you what happened to me. We had an astronomer in our church once who was actually himself had been awed, and he did that to us. He said he took his finger and put it up in the air and covered a section of the sky. And he said it was so dense with what he called stars. He said, those aren't stars. There's a billion stars in every one of those because they're all galaxies. Galaxies, billions and billions of galaxies with billions and billions and trillions of... And he said that was only one finger worth of an entire sphere that he could have been looking at. That, for me, is awe.
Mm-hmm. And it's that recognition of how small we truly are in this universe and how amazing things are. You know, and and here again, going back to the language, the word awesome is used for everything. Oh, that was awesome. We use that word all the time, and I've tried to really watch myself and stop using that word like that. And just every day, something that was, oh, that was really good. It wasn't awesome. Because we've lost the awe in the word. So when you use it, it doesn't have that same feeling. You don't get that same feeling emotionally and physically that you would when someone says it was awe. So that goes back to what she says about having the right words. What are some of the things that you guys are on your awe list? Something that you want to see, or something that you want to experience that you haven't yet, that you feel would inspire awe or wonder?
Very much enjoy to see the Northern Lights.
I have to tell you a story about seeing the Northern Lights. So I was in the Air Force and I was stationed in Alaska, and which I was really angry about, because they give you a wish list of where you want to go, and I put in for Southeast, I put in for Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia, because I wanted to go somewhere where it was warm, and they sent me to Alaska. And so I was up there, and I hadn't been there for very long, and I was working one of the entrance gates. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. It was out in the middle of nowhere, not a soul in sight. And all of a sudden, the sky has these glowing green, wavy, and I'm like, oh my God, it's an alien invasion. What is, I'm a Missouri girl. I was born and raised in Missouri, in Southwest Missouri. I had never been outside of the 4 states of Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri, and barely out of those. And I had never heard of the Northern Lights, and I had no idea what was happening. It scared me. It's like, what is happening with this? And so I'm trying to figure out who I can call, because I know whoever I'm going to call, they're going to tell me something and think it's hilarious that I have no idea what's happening. And so, which is exactly what happened. I called and I'm like, okay, what is happening in the sky right now? It feels like an alien invasion or something. And of course I got laughed at. But it's spectacular. It's absolutely a spectacular sight. So yeah.
I was just going to say, I know we're kind of looking at universal things, but one of the most impressive and, to me, just awe, shock, wonder is our new generation. When you look at our kids and how fast they're processing in their brain and creativity speeds versus like when we were younger. I know a lot of times we give a lot of bad rep. Oh, it's just Gen X. But I don't know how much time many of you have gotten to spend with our youth, and just like Lucas, and seeing how much he's developed in leadership and just how fantastic our youth are. But in general, in some of the jobs that I've worked, just watching what exciting future we have ahead, because they don't want the BS. They don't want all the fighting. And so to me, the wonder is being able to watch them manifest that creativity, because it's way powerful, I think, than we can even comprehend.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when I think of wonder.
Yeah. So one of the things they talk about the difference between wonder and awe. Wonder inspires the wish to understand, to become curious about what's happening. Awe inspires the wish to let shine, to acknowledge, and to unite. When feeling awe, we tend to just simply stand back and observe, to provide a stage for the phenomenon to shine. And that's the difference between wonder and awe. Okay. Let's see. Curious is the key indicator, along with smallness to feeling wonder. Two things we need in our lives, but are bad at naming and recognizing, are the hard emotions. We're worse at naming the positive ones, she says. The ones we need and want more of. The word awesome has become a common word, and trying to rethink it. So the next thing she goes to was grief. How many of you enjoy a sad movie every once in a while? I'm kind of getting, a few people are like, yes, I absolutely do. So why do you think we watch sad movies?
Because I need a good cry.
Because we need a good cry. Because
experience that in
To
our lives
safely
at times.
experience the emotion.
to safely experience the emotion, and it helps us to recognize that, to remind us of what it feels like to be human. So, what are some of your favorite sad movies?
The Notebook.
The Notebook. Anything else?
I cried a lot during Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Everything, Everywhere, All at
You guys
Once.
should watch that.
Okay.
It's a little. It's very heavily full of pop culture, so
Okay.
R, rated R.
Okay.
But
See, I have yet to watch Titanic. Because I can't, somebody told me about one scene in it, and it's like I cry every time I even think about that scene, and so I haven't watched it. That, or, let's be honest, any movie where an animal dies, a dog. Oh my gosh, I haven't watched Marley and Me either, because it's like I can't handle. I just can't do it.
What dreams may come. Happy.
What dreams may come. Did anyone watch the series This Is Us?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we cried every week.
That last season.
My Sue would every week the show would end, and we'd look at each other and with just tears. And she's like, "Whose idea was it to watch this stupid show anyway?" But it just tugs at those heartstrings.
Terms of endearment.
Oh my gosh, yes, terms of endearment.
Steel Magnolias.
Steel Magnolias.
Even the Elvis movie was sad.
Yeah.
Was it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Up? How many of you have seen Up?
Yes.
For a cartoon, yeah. Okay, so we watch them, and there are a couple of things that she talks about, that emotion is not, it's biology. It is how we feel it in our bodies and how we experience that emotion. It's biography, how we were raised. Is it okay to have those feelings? It's about our culture, the cultural differences. Many people experience emotion very differently in different cultures, and it's behavior. How do we show up in emotion? So for those of you who have seen Up, and you see this picture, and this still picture, we're not sad about this still picture just because obviously someone is in the hospital, and she's older and probably going to die, and then there's her partner. We're sad because we know the backstory of this picture. We're not only feeling his sadness because he's losing his wife. We're feeling the sadness because we understand in the backstory that there were all of these unfulfilled dreams that they had that are dying with her. And probably some guilt because he was not able to give her the things that she wanted to have during her life, and that he was never able to give those. So we know that backstory with it. So she talks about one of the biggest errors that in her research and in many others is saying that we need to learn how to read emotion in ourselves and others. She now believes that we can't read emotion in other people. You hear that you need to walk a mile in someone else's shoes and recognize where they are. She said there's too much going on. We don't know the biography. We don't know the biology. We don't know the backstory and what they're feeling. So we can't really walk in somebody else's shoes. We can't understand what it is that they're feeling. So she says, this is where we start doing two things at one time. How do we find our way back to ourselves and each other? One, we need language that is an expansion as the human experience. We need more words. And in the series and also in the book, she goes through lots and lots of words and that we don't ever use. And she also says we need a framework for connection that allows us to get curious about what it means to connect, but also holds us accountable for how we connect with ourselves and one another. So in the series and in the book, she helps to build that language skills. Like I said, she goes over 30 different emotions in the series. And in the book, she goes through 87 different emotions. That's a lot of emotions. Yes, Wendy?
So I'm trying to understand when you say we need all these words, we need more vocabulary. My experience is unless you're with people who have a large vocabulary, using a large vocabulary separates you from the other people. They, it's like they just tune out to you because you're using words they don't understand. And the second thing is the dependence upon words to express what's happening. It can get you so off base. Just as a small example, went to college in my 40s, took freshman seminar. The teacher at the front of the room said the most important thing in a relationship is respect. And when she said that, I just was like, I don't even know why I want to be in this stupid class. She doesn't know anything. She is totally an inept teacher. There's nothing here for me. But it was the kind of class you're supposed to look at stuff. So I went home and I looked it up in the dictionary, did all these things about it, and then thought about what it meant. And what respect meant to me was my father said, "You will respect me."
Mm-hmm. Backstory.
And when we went back to the class, I took that information and I talked about it in the class. Mm-hmm. And there was a class of about 35 people. And they said, how many people here feel like respect is something you want to have and is important? 2 people rose their hand. Everybody else, that word respect made them feel awful. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'm trying to understand how knowing more words and believing in the power of words is going to create better relationships.
And I hear what you're saying.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead. What time?
It's almost 10 after we're gonna.
Oh gosh, is it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
Real quick. So yeah, absolutely. Large vocabularies and words are inherently limiting because a word can't capture all that is about something. But you were speaking of languages, and languages don't necessarily mean words. Languages don't necessarily mean like a vocabulary. But pain is a language. If you had never experienced pain, how could you relate to someone that was feeling horrible pain, or grief, or happiness, or love, or all of these things? All of these are different languages that human beings can speak and learn over the course of their lifetimes. And the language barrier doesn't have to be only what English and Spanish and French. The language barrier can be the lived lifetime.
Ooh, very good.
Maybe
Really
it's a
nice.
bonus.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you
Having the
can.
word is a bonus.
Yeah, I think language can help with precision, but like you said, if you've never experienced it, if someone has never left Springfield, Missouri,
Yeah.
it's kind of hard for them to understand when you're talking about Chicago.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a language.
Yeah.
And language doesn't all have to be verbal.
Very good.
Right. But you look at it when we're expressing emotion, and I tried to talking to 24-year-old guy, and trying to explain to him, and he was talking about how, you know, why is it okay for, you know, so a woman can look at another woman and go, damn, man, you look awesome, amazing. And when I do it though, it's insulting. And I said, okay, if I look at a woman and I go, damn, to her, what I'm saying to her is, I appreciate all of the effort that you went to look like this, because you look fabulous. There's nothing sexual in it. It's, you look amazing, and I know what kind of effort you put into looking like that. Where most of the time, or I'm going to make a generalized statement, where women perceive when a man does that, he's thinking, I would definitely have sex with you.
It can be both.
It can be both, and you're absolutely right. And a woman's perception, though, that may be the first perception that she has of that. So that's where, you know, I tried to say, to tell him, I said, if you want to unsexualize it, tell her she looks lovely. The word lovely, to me, it is you look beautiful.
That
You
should follow
look,
the dam.
you look, yeah, that should follow the dam. Don says, you look lovely. It's classy. It's elegant, and it's not a sexualized thing. So there is so much in this. I really, really encourage you you can go to HBO Max. The series is on HBO Max. If you don't have HBO Max, you can get a free trial of it, binge watch it, and then just get rid of it. Because if you want to do it that way, or you can get the book, you can get it online and an audio of the book, or you can get the actual book and read it. And there's so much good stuff. I've got like 20 pages in here that we didn't get to, but I love the conversation. It's been wonderful. Thank you so much for all of your input.
We'll just
And
have to
thank
have you back for part 2.
Yes, we can definitely do that.
Thank you so much. There we go. Thank you so much, Mary. That was awe-inspiring. Before I get started with the announcements, if you like what you heard today, if you like what you hear every Sunday, put that energy into it. I'm going to pass the basket around for that. Okay, I'm going to read the announcements. Next week, August 28th, there will be a fundraising breakfast hosted by the YOU and the Unity. And so we're not having a talk. It's going to be a fundraising breakfast. So hope all of you can come for that. Breakfast.
Yeah, I was going to say Carrie Kugler. This is her brainchild.
Okay.
For Christmas decorations.
All right. Yeah, that's right. Fantastic. Breakfast opens at 9 a.m., so there'll be no adult education class. The funds will be used to purchase a new Christmas tree and garlands. Thank you, Carrie. There are slips on the table in the foyer to enter a drawing to win a $30 certificate from La Paloma Restaurant. If you eat at La Paloma, please tell them you're from Unity and thank them for sharing. Okay, cornhole and karaoke is coming September 17th. There are 2 on each cornhole team. The entry fee is $20. There's a sign-up sheet in the foyer, or you can sign up online. There'll be food and drinks available for purchase. Come join in fun, even if you don't want to participate in cornhole. And if you didn't go to the one we had last time, was that last year?
Fun.
I
Yes.
think it was last year, yeah. I know COVID gets my timing all off, but it was so much fun. And you don't have to play cornhole. There's just all sorts of fun stuff there. If you're new to our congregation and would like to learn more about us after the service, please see our welcome ambassador, Teresa Amescua, after you attend the orientation held. Thank you. After you attend the service, she has information packets and coffee mugs. There's a lot of announcements, aren't there? There's a form on the packet to fill out and return to Teresa or the church office. Everyone's invited to attend a Planet Unity strategic planning meeting after the service on August 28th. Hope you're all remembering all these dates. We will brainstorm new ideas and set goals for Planet Unity 2023. There's a World Day of Prayer service at 6:30 p.m. on Thursday, September 8th. There'll be a potluck followed by a seminar and estate planning basics Sunday, September 11th, led by Brandy Martin. Thank you, Brandy. Ladies, begin to sort your closet and open yourself to new things. The Fall Fashion Boutique will be Friday, September 16th. Wow, there is a lot of stuff going on. We will receive new members during the service September 25th. This is for any and everyone wishing to become a member of the congregation who has attended 6 months, whether online or in person. It's required that you attend the orientation held September 18th in Fellowship Hall and on Facebook Live for our online congregants. Today, we invite you to stay for a town hall meeting and potluck following the service. That means today. This is not only a chance for us to connect, but we will hear the latest at Unity of Springfield. If you didn't bring a dish, don't worry, you're still welcome. And I made the potato salad, by the way, so you got to stay for that.
Did you put mustard in it?
I did. All right. Okay, and then D is doing a 5-week credit course, Prosperity, beginning Wednesday, August 31st, 6 to 8 p.m. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that is for any of you interested in taking a class on prosperity. And that's also for the licensed Unity teacher program too.
Also, there's a PFLAG meeting today. PFLAG meeting today at 1355 East Sunshine at 3 o'clock. There's a lot of things going on in Springfield with our school systems that they're going to talk about. So if you have any interest in that, this would be a great opportunity for you to go to that.
Could you mention just real quickly what PFLAG is?
PFLAG is for parents and friends of people who are in the LGBTQIA group.
All right, thank you. Let's get together, and it's going to be a big circle.